Back in 2009, inside the scorching depths of Colombia's Cerrejón coal mine, a group of paleontologists carefully examined strata of prehistoric stone. They extracted the flattened fossils of a lush jungle that had thrived roughly 60 million years earlier, shortly following the extinction of the dinosaurs. Yet, the discovery they unearthed left them frozen in disbelief. A colossal vertebra, bulkier than a person's wrist. Initially, the experts reacted like any logical researcher spotting oversized fractured bones in Paleocene tropical sediments. They figured it belonged to a crocodile. After all, crocodilians dominated those prehistoric marshes as the ultimate powerhouses. The notion of a bus-sized reptile already strained belief to its limits. Still, something didn't add up. The bone's contours failed to align with the familiar crocodile spine segments that experts recognized. Then the revelation hit. These weren't from a crocodile. They came from a snake. And not merely any serpent. This was Titanoboa. Cerrejón isn't your average dig site. It's a preserved snapshot of history. An intact Paleocene forest entombed abruptly under layers of silt and volcanic debris. Vines, aquatic creatures, tortoises, full glimpses of a bygone era captured with remarkable clarity. And buried in that sediment lay the most enormous snake fossils ever discovered. As the crew unearthed additional vertebrae, scores in total, plus ribs and nearby animal remains, a key truth emerged beyond doubt. This wasn't some anomaly or overstatement. The specimens were uniform, gigantic, and unprecedented in the fossil archives. What surfaced was an image of a beast so immense it redefined the maximum potential for serpents. The announcement exploded like lightning. When the scientists first gauged the vertebrae, they double-checked the math repeatedly, certain an error lurked somewhere. But the figures held firm. They indicated a serpent exceeding 15 meters in length. The team stood amazed. Should those dimensions prove accurate, Titanoboa transcended mere largeness. It claimed the title of Earth's biggest terrestrial hunter post-dinosaurs. Such proportions suggested Paleocene habitats much warmer, thicker with life, and more fiercely contested than anyone had pictured. A monster of that scale demanded an environment that stretched the boundaries of biology itself. What sort of world spawned such titans? Titanoboa was outrageously huge. The cautious projections clocked it at around 42 feet, though bolder calculations reached beyond 50 feet, with a weight ranging from 2,000 to 2,500 pounds. To put it in perspective, the biggest verified anaconda measured about 28 feet, and tipped the scales at roughly 500 pounds. Thus, Titanoboa dwarfed it, nearly doubling the length and quadrupling to quintupling the mass. But what captivates me most is this. How do experts estimate an ancient creature's dimensions from only a scattering of spine bones? It turns out that today's snakes adhere to reliable proportional patterns. Vertebrae dimensions link straight to overall body size. So researchers assess a Titanoboa fossil, match it against contemporary squeezers like pythons and anacondas, and project the results. Yet that raises a bigger puzzle. Why did Titanoboa eclipse every living snake in stature? The explanation ties to climate. Snakes, being cold-blooded, depend on outside heat sources for warmth, unable to generate their own. Their surroundings dictate nearly all aspects: metabolic rate, development speed, and even maximum growth ceilings. Consider it like this. Higher ambient heat accelerates a snake's internal processes. Quicker metabolism fuels rapid expansion, better nutrient processing, and support for a far bigger frame. Thus, unearthing Titanoboa revealed more than a super predator. It served as a paleoclimate gauge, a living sensor from 60 million years back, and the data signaled a planet dramatically toastier than our current one. Grasping Titanoboa requires grasping its habitat. Rewind to roughly 58 million years ago in the Paleocene period, mere millions of years after the dinosaurs' demise. The globe was rebounding, habitats reforming, and equatorial zones evolving into realms we'd scarcely recognize. Worldwide temps soared well above modern levels. In present-day northern Colombia, projections indicate steady annual averages of at least 32 degrees Celsius, devoid of much seasonal drop. Picture a jungle that stays sweltering non-stop, even through the dark hours. A realm where the atmosphere hangs like an unending steam bath. Absent polar ice, no chilly seasons, just unyielding vaporous warmth blanketing from equator to extremes. Woodlands dripped with moisture, rivers simmered under sunlight, and organisms ballooned in size. For ectotherms, such heat erased their primary barrier. But contemporary tropical rainforests, such as those in the Amazon, Congo Basin, and Southeast Asia, remain too chilly for a serpent like Titanoboa to thrive. Today's anacondas and pythons already test the boundaries of what our present-day climate can support in terms of size. Reaching the scale of Titanoboa demands a planet that's been steadily heated up by multiple degrees for millions of years. Titanoboa simply couldn't cope without that warmth. Its enormous frame required intense heat to ignite its metabolism and circulate blood through 50 feet of powerful loops. The Sarrajan site uncovers this ancient environment in vivid detail. Fossilized plants appear in stratum upon stratum. Massive turtle shells, comparable to pool tables in dimension, turn up frequently. Primitive crocodile kin, equipped with broad, bone-crushing jaws, indicate they fed on tough-shelled creatures. Rather than swift aquatic hunters, these were bulky, stealthy ambushers with robust maws. The landscape wasn't a pristine, rushing waterway. It formed a steamy, marshy jungle. Murky, sluggish streams twisted through knotted roots and thick foliage. Sightlines were limited. Echoes were dulled by endless drizzle and droning bugs. In this setting, sheer bulk offered a huge edge. A colossal snake could conceal itself underwater, its weight buoyed by the liquid, its form masked by tannin-tinted flows. Warmth and moisture kept its tissues primed and responsive, enabling bursts of action when required, followed by long periods of rest to process massive feasts spanning weeks or even months. In this milieu, Titanoboa's existence wasn't random. It emerged as a natural consequence of such harsh conditions: elevated heat, plentiful food sources, and a boggy maze ideal for deliberate, enduring lies in wait. Now, the big query on everyone's mind: how exactly did Titanoboa pursue its quarry? Discard those cinematic tropes. Titanoboa wasn't a frenzied beast pursuing victims across dry ground. It wasn't built for dashing through underbrush like a sprinting python or scaling trunks as a arboreal boa. At over 40 feet of sheer brawn, it couldn't navigate forest litter with agility. It would founder, haul itself forward, battling the pull of Earth with every segment. Yet in aquatic realms, the dynamics shifted dramatically. During the Paleocene marshes, Titanoboa acted more akin to a croc than a typical serpent. Methodical, quiet, partially immersed. It blended into the opaque waters for cover, weaving amid toppled timber and root networks with barely a ripple on top. For a creature of its stature, staying unseen wasn't a feat. It was its way of life. It never pursued or dashed. Instead, it lingered for hours, perhaps days, nearly still, until a target approached within reach. When it lunged, the power was horrifying. Simulations of its biomechanics suggest it could generate over 400 psi in squeezing force, sufficient to snap a croc's ribcage right away. While contemporary boas and pythons mainly starve prey of circulation to overpower them, at Titanoboa's proportions, the method hardly differed. The end was identical. Anything ensnared stayed trapped. Drawing from the Sarajan ecosystem's known inhabitants, Titanoboa probably dined on oversized turtles, plodding, plentiful, and calorie-rich, ideal for a lurker. Primitive crocs, dwarfed by the snake and not yet the top hunters of later eras. Substantial fish, plentiful in the waterways and simple to snag in narrow passages. Maybe nascent mammals, although they stayed modest in size back in the Paleocene. Those daring near the shorelines would have been ripe for the taking. The aquatic domain served as more than a hunting zone. It was essential for survival. Water's lift eased the burden of its immense girth. Lacking that, Titanoboa would falter on terra firma, its mobility hampered. Its own bulk would squash vital organs, hindering respiration, delaying nutrient breakdown, and draining energy for motion. Crucially, immersion aided in managing its core heat. As ectotherms, snakes draw warmth from their habitat. In the stifling Paleocene heat, water allowed cooling as needed, all while fueling the elevated energy demands of such a behemoth. Thus, envisioning Titanoboa, skip the image of it writhing over soil like a horror from myth. See it instead drifting soundlessly through shadowy depths, gaze skimming the waterline, poised for the ideal assault. Given Titanoboa's prowess as a hunter, so finely tuned to its habitat, why did it vanish? The explanation is straightforward yet poignant. The planet evolved, and Titanoboa couldn't adapt. Post-Paleocene, the globe started cooling, gently initially, then accelerating. Worldwide averages fell by a few degrees Celsius across several million years. For an cold-blooded colossus like Titanoboa, this spelled doom. The key to cold-blooded life is that metabolic rate hinges entirely on ambient warmth. As temperatures drop, your metabolic rate begins to decrease. The process of breaking down food drags on. Your movements grow lethargic. Development speeds take a nosedive. For something as massive as Titanoboa, that spelled disaster. The beast required a massive intake of calories merely to sustain its immense size. Yet, with that sluggish metabolism, hunting efficiency suffered. Prey couldn't be processed quickly, and it struggled to bulk up sufficiently to fend off rival hunters. In short, Titanoboa wasted away gradually. Temperature wasn't the only factor at play, though. The whole ecological balance was in flux. Mammals, once minor players in the dinosaur era, small and overlooked, started branching out and scaling up in size. Being endothermic, they stayed energetic despite the chill, vying for the very nourishment that enormous reptiles relied upon. At the same time, the verdant, boggy woodlands from the Paleocene epoch started to wither. Waterways turned erratic with the seasons. The thick, moist habitat where Titanoboa flourished faded away. And crucially, fellow oversized reptiles were vanishing too. The enormous turtles, the hulking crocs. The whole network of sustenance propping up Titanoboa crumbled. Indeed, its end came neither from attacks, nor illness, nor rivals. It perished because Earth dipped a mere handful of degrees cooler. Nothing more was needed. Just a minor tweak in worldwide weather patterns, and the biggest serpent in history ceased to be. This ought to give us pause, since climate change doesn't merely mold habitats. It sets the boundaries for life's very viability, top to bottom. Titanoboa was an anomaly that defies logic. It was overly enormous, excessively weighty, overly tied to an environment bound to evolve. Still, in one fleeting chapter of our planet's timeline, everything fell into place just right. For eons, that colossal snake dominated the wetlands of prehistoric Colombia. Then, as abruptly as it emerged, it faded into oblivion, bequeathing us just fossils and curiosities. Look, soliciting help always carries a hint of unease, so I'll make this quick. Producing these pieces is a passion project at heart. For that reason, I'm eager to elevate what this channel offers: more vivid imagery, thorough investigations, and tales that ignite real curiosity. Excellence demands effort, and going solo makes it tough. Hence, I'm rolling out memberships for the channel. Joining up isn't merely contributing cash. It's granting me the hours to build grander, superior productions. If you're on board with this vision and keen to aid my dives into the mysteries, why not hit that subscribe link? You quite literally keep me going. My thanks. And in the meantime, check out this other video right here. I'm sure it'll captivate you.